And good evening, everyone. Here in Western New York, you have about 3 hours and 30 minutes until polls will close at 9 o'clock tonight. If you haven't voted, there is still time. For our Pennsylvania viewers, you only have until 8 o'clock tonight to cast a ballot, though as long as you're in line by 8 o'clock, you will be able to vote. We had very strong early voting, not only in parts of our region, but across New York and really throughout much of the country. And of course, pretty strong turnout throughout a whole lot of Western New York earlier today. We're also getting now our first look at the initial exit polling, showing about 3/4 of voters said they had a negative view of the way things are going in this country. We have two political insiders joining us live tonight to break down all of this. Republican Carl Calabrese and Democrat Jennifer Tuttle. It's great to have both of you here. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be here.
So we're going to talk about some local races in a moment. Our Bob McCarthy is going to join us as well. We're going to take you to Harris headquarters and also Trump headquarters down in Florida. But I want to start with the presidential race because that's what people care about, right? And Jennifer, I'll ask you first. I mentioned the exit polling there. Normally, maybe under normal circumstances, the incumbent would not want to hear 3/4 of people think we're going in the wrong direction. But you told me a moment ago the vice president isn't necessarily the incumbent here.
Yeah, this is a very interesting race that we're in right now. So you have the vice president who's sort of the incumbent, but not really. She definitely represents change in this race. We've had Donald Trump just dominating the political narrative for 10 years, and I think people are ready to turn the page. The other interesting thing about the exit polling was voters were talking about the economy and democracy as their top issues. So that seems to be a split amongst where people are.
And Carl, I know that you have sort of a different take on this, right? In terms of what you believe, who is the change candidate here. I remember back to 2008 when Barack Obama ran on the change platform. And since then, and probably before then, it's been a pretty popular thing. Who is the change candidate here?
Donald Trump has been the change agent and the explosive change agent since he came down that escalator in 2016. It's tough to say she's not the incumbent. I mean, for the last 4 years, we've lived under the Biden-Harris administration. She has bragged about, and the president has confirmed, that she was in the room on every decision. She said on a couple of shows there's nothing she would change. She is part of this administration. She's trying to do a delicate tightrope act here that she's going to change from an administration that she was part of, but she wasn't part of. It's a tough road to hoe. 70%, 75% of Americans thinking the country's in the wrong direction. Ever since we've been polling that question, a party in power has never retained the White House with that kind of negative wrong direction number. So it's a tough road to hoe. They still may do it, though, because as you know, Jan, politics and elections are about turnout. The side that does a better job with that tonight will win.
And I want to ask you about that in just a moment. First, we all know, I mean, the Electoral College is how we elect a president, right? And that's what matters. So I want to show viewers, as we move over here to our big board, this is sort of where things stand right now. If you look at the map, there are 7 swing states. Now, we don't know that there won't be any surprises here. It's always possible. There was a lot of talk about the poll in Iowa, and perhaps Kamala Harris can win there. You look at a state like Virginia, where Donald Trump's team thinks he could do well. But this is sort of where we're starting, right? 226 for Harris, 219 for Trump. Very close race. And there are these states here on the East Coast, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, also Michigan, Wisconsin. We're going to get pretty early results in those states, and they'll really tell us a lot in terms of how this race is shaping up. And our two analysts a moment ago there talking about turnout. That's what really matters. And I want to ask you guys about the turnout question here, right? New York State is not necessarily in play, but Pennsylvania certainly is, and it's not too far away. Let me ask you first, Jennifer, turnout locally and turnout nationally. What are you hearing?
It's high. People are excited to vote. And I think the thing to remember here is you say change, I would say chaos for Donald Trump. And also, generally speaking, when you have a tight race, the candidate with the better campaign wins, and it is undoubtedly Kamala's advantage that she has the stronger campaign, and they have the field operation, and they have the boots on the ground. They have excited volunteers. They don't have a paid operation by Elon Musk that's not doing anything. They are positioned to win a close race.
Carl, what would you say to that? It does seem like most of the analysts out there believe the Harris campaign nailed the last few days. Donald Trump got a little bit off message.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, the week started off with the president calling Trump supporters garbage and then trying to cover it up, and then our own governor saying those of us who support Donald Trump are anti-American. I don't think it was a good week at all. But having said that, the turnout is the key. One thing the Republicans did very well this time that they haven't done well at all is the early vote, mail-in and in person. That killed the Republican chances in 2020. In 2021, early 2021 in Georgia for those two special Senate elections, the Democrats ran roughshod over Republicans with the early vote, and we lost 2 Senate seats. And then in 2022 in the midterms, Democrats once again just bowled over Republicans on the early vote. Not so this time. In those 7 key states, the Republican early vote, both mail-in and in person, is ahead substantially to the Democrats. Now, if the Republicans have as good a ground game tonight on Election Day as they did on early voting, he wins. But that's an unknown because, as Jennifer alluded, Trump has done something totally different. He has contracted out his ground game to 2 PACs. I've read good things about it, I've read bad things about it, and frankly, I've read ugly things about it. We don't know. It's untried.
Yeah.
We'll know tomorrow. But if it works as well as the early voting program did, he'll win.
Yeah, that's what we have to be following.
One thing I want to say on that. So what we're seeing, though, with the Republican early vote turnout is it seems to be a cannibalization of Republican voters. They're not bringing new
That's the question.
voters.
Which is it, right? And we really don't know.
If it wasn't worth it, both parties wouldn't be spending so much time on it.
Yeah.
The way it works is all of those people who have banked their vote, that means there's more time for Republican volunteers on election night to concentrate on those people who haven't voted. So you can really concentrate your attention and effort. So it is the party that has won the early vote going back many cycles is the party that wins on election.
Hang tight with us for just a moment. Want to check in with both of the campaigns. We did hear from Kamala Harris and Donald Trump earlier today. Listen to this.
Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the 3.
We got to get it done. Today is voting day, and people need to get out and be active.
We want to get an update from both campaigns. Michael Yoshida is with the former president, whose election night event is in West Palm Beach, Florida. First, though, to Brian Abel in Washington, D.C., where the vice president will spend the night at her alma mater, Howard University. Brian?
There's kind of a quiet excitement here at Harris HQ tonight. The supporters of the vice president, they are not allowed in just yet. They'll be in a little bit later, and this place will likely become electric. But right now, the support staff helping put on this event, they're also supporters of the campaign. You can feel the excitement from them as well. Here's what Harris campaign will be looking at tonight. The battleground states, the ones especially that will have those early results start to come in when the polls close. We're talking about Georgia and North Carolina specifically, and the reason why those 2 states are important to the Harris campaign is because if they take one of the 2, then their path to 270 remains multi-tier. There's multiple ways to go about getting there, but if they do not take one of those 2 states, then that path to 270 electoral votes gets pretty narrow pretty quickly. They would then have to take all of the blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or possibly an upset in a place like Arizona. Listen to what both of the campaigns said going into tonight's results.
It's going to take some time to get results. We're going to go up, down, but at the end of the day, as we always do, we will get the results that we know are accurate.
You always have regrets. I can't think of any, to be honest, to use her expression. I can't think of any. Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the 3.
And so tonight, of course, the stakes extremely high. The Harris campaign hoping that her message really resonates with voters tonight. But the campaign is also stressing patience, knowing they may not have an answer to who America has chosen when the night ends. Live at Howard University, I'm Brian Abel reporting. Back to you.
And from D.C., we head down to Florida. Michael Yoshida is with Mr. Trump tonight. Michael?
And we're into the final hours of voting this election day here at Trump headquarters at the Palm Beach Convention Center, just hours away from thousands of supporters of the former president filling this center as they prepare to watch the votes and the results roll in. Of course, throughout the day, we've seen tens of millions of Americans across the country going out to their voting locations. We've seen long lines across many of the battleground states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, of course, North Carolina as well. And before today, we already had more than some 80 million Americans place their votes as part of early voting. Former President Donald Trump taking part in tele-rallies. Also, he'll be at his Mar-a-Lago resort with close family and friends throughout most of the evening. His supporters here at the convention center, again, they'll be watching the results roll in. No word yet on exactly if he'll come over to speak. It all depends on how the night goes. We're live at Trump headquarters at the Palm Beach Convention Center. I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. Our 7 News political analyst Bob McCarthy joining the conversation now. So you heard our two partisan analysts here. What do you think of the presidential race?
I think they hit it right on the head. Nobody knows what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
And that's because this has just been the strangest race of all time. Look at all the developments that we've seen over the last year. And Michael, you and I have talked about polls, and we've talked about turnout, ethnic blocks over all this time, and we still don't know. And it all comes together because of all these strange events that started out with 2 unpopular candidates going at each other, and now all of a sudden a real live presidential election that no one foresaw. And if Kamala Harris had gone through the primary process, I'm not sure she would have emerged as the candidate even. So all of this is thrust upon us, and all of it makes it so exciting.
And here we are. We have to remember, too, there are a lot of races that we're watching here locally, and I want to kind of go through at least 3 of them that we believe are interesting or possibly could be tight. First, the 142nd Assembly District, covering South Buffalo, Lackawanna, West Seneca, part of Orchard Park. There you see the Democrat Pat Burke, the incumbent, facing a challenge from Mark Priori. The 143rd District, also seen as competitive. This is Cheektowaga, Depew, a little bit of Buffalo and Lancaster. There you have Democrat Monica Wallace versus Republican Patrick Chudlinski. And then the Erie County District Attorney's race gotten very heated with attack ads on TV. Michael Cain there against James Gardner. Bob, what should we be looking out for in these 3 local races?
I am just fascinated by all of them. First of all, the DA race. What we need to know about this race is that it occurs in a presidential year in heavily Democratic Erie County, where Democrats are going to turn out en masse. So we have someone who is spending over $400,000 of his own money in this. And if a Republican cannot win with that kind of effort and with a quality candidate in this election in a presidential year, I don't think we will ever see a Republican district attorney in Erie County again. As far as the Monica Wallace race goes, this one probably is getting more scrutiny than any other assembly race in the state, as far as I'm concerned. She had a tough time against a weaker and underfinanced candidate the last 2 times. This one is a top-notch candidate with lots of money, support from Albany Democrats, and as we've talked about before, she has made abortion a big issue in a heavily Catholic district. And then Pat Burke, I think he's probably most handicapped by the sex harassment ads that have gone out against him. Fair or not fair? That is something that he's going to have to contend with, and that is also gaining a lot of money and attention from around the state.
I'm going to cut a little bit of time from the next segment and give each of you 20 or 30 seconds. Final thought. What do you think? Carl, go first.
I agree with what Bob said about both assembly races, so I'll leave it at that. But I was disappointed in the Republicans' campaign for district attorney. I thought it started off with a great theme, making crime illegal again. And then all of a sudden it switched to essentially the Democrat playbook, price gouging and corporate greed. And I said, what is wrong with this? Last gubernatorial election showed that Democrats are very vulnerable in this state on the crime issue. Lee Zeldin almost won the gubernatorial. I thought he should have stuck with that, making crime illegal again, and it would have helped his assembly mates who are running, and maybe even beyond that. But I think he missed the boat. I think he missed the boat by not sticking with making crime illegal again.
Jennifer, final thought?
Yeah, I think the Democrats have the stronger candidate here. He has worked hard. I'm at a lot of events. I see him everywhere. I know he hasn't stopped working. He's all over TV. I think he's going to pull through in the end. And I agree that Monica probably has the tighter race there. I think Pat's going to pull through, and South Buffalo will deliver him a win.
We're following all these races very closely. Jennifer, Carl, Bob, thanks so much to all of you for coming in tonight. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
Thank you.